What were the most significant military defeats for the British during the Victorian era? This question sparks an intriguing exploration into a pivotal epoch in British history. The Victorian era, named after Queen Victoria, who reigned from 1837 to 1901, was an era of expansive growth, industrial revolution, and colonial expansion for the British Empire. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. There were numerous military challenges, setbacks, and outright defeats that tested the might of the British military forces and reshaped the geopolitical landscape. Today, we will embark on a historical journey, counting down the top 10 significant military defeats that the British experienced during the Victorian era. From the arid plains of Afghanistan to the rolling hills of the Zulu Kingdom, these battles and wars highlight the complexities and difficulties faced by the British Empire in its pursuit of colonial expansion. Are you ready to delve into history? Let's begin our journey. Starting our countdown at number 10, we have the Battle of Isandlwana in 1879. This battle, a pivotal moment in the Anglo-Zulu War, saw the British forces suffer a defeat that was both unexpected and significant. Armed with rifles and cannons against a Zulu army wielding primarily traditional weapons, the British might have expected an easy victory. However, the Zulu Kingdom, under the strategic lead of King Cetshwayo, used their knowledge of the terrain and superior numbers to encircle and overpower the British camp. The result was a catastrophic loss for the British, with over 1,300 soldiers losing their lives. This defeat was a stark reminder that the British Empire was not invincible, and that indigenous forces, when united and determined, could challenge even the most technologically advanced armies. This defeat marked the beginning of the end for British colonial rule in South Africa. Next up, at number 9, is the Battle of Maiwand in 1880. This was a pivotal moment during the Second Anglo-Afghan War, where the British faced a crushing defeat against the formidable Afghan forces. The British, under the command of Brigadier General George Burroughs, were met by an Afghan army led by Ayub Khan. Despite the British forces' superior firepower and disciplined lines, they found themselves outmaneuvered and outnumbered. The Afghan forces, driven by a fierce desire to protect their homeland, fought with an unyielding tenacity that overwhelmed the British. The result was a devastating loss for the British. A staggering number of casualties, including over 1,000 soldiers, and the loss of precious military equipment. This defeat was not just a blow to the British military strength, but also to their prestige and morale. This defeat was a significant setback for British colonial ambitions in Afghanistan. It served as a somber reminder of the complexities and challenges of colonial warfare, particularly in the unforgiving terrain of Afghanistan. At number 8, we have the First Anglo-Afghan War from 1839 to 1842. This war, while not a single battle, was a series of continuous conflicts and skirmishes that became a thorn in the side of the British Empire. It all started when Britain, fearful of Russia's encroachment, tried to replace the Afghan ruler Dost Muhammad Khan with a more amenable monarch. The initial British invasion was successful, but maintaining control was another matter. The Afghan people resisted, leading to the infamous retreat from Kabul in January 1842. Out of an army and accompanying civilians of around 16,000, only one British officer, Dr. William Brydon, would reach the safety of Jalalabad. It was a humbling experience for the British, who had severely underestimated the Afghan resistance. The war's outcome led to the restoration of Dost Muhammad Khan and a significant setback for British influence in the region. This war marked a turning point in the great game between Britain and Russia. Coming in at number 7 is the First Boer War from 1880 to 1881. This conflict, fought on the velds of South Africa, tested the mettle of the British Empire against the tenacious Boers, Dutch settlers known for their rugged independence and lethal marksmanship. The war was characterized by several key battles, none more significant than the Battle of Majuba Hill. Here, the British forces, confident in their military superiority, were taken by surprise. The Boers, using guerrilla tactics and leveraging their intimate knowledge of the terrain, delivered a crushing defeat to the British. The British, humiliated by this loss, had to make concessions to the Boer demands. This war was a stark reminder of the complexities and risks of colonial warfare. It also marked a significant setback for the British, shaking their hold on South Africa. Ultimately, the First Boer War signaled the beginning of the end for British rule in South Africa. Finally, our most significant defeat during the Victorian era, at number 1, is the Crimean War from 1853 to 1856. A conflict that would forever change the face of warfare and the political landscape of Europe. The Crimean War was a major confrontation that saw the British Empire team up with the Ottoman Empire, France, and Sardinia to prevent Russian expansion into Ottoman territory. However, the war was not simply a matter of territorial disputes. It was a clash of empires, a struggle for control, and a test of mettle. The British forces, despite their reputation and might, faced a formidable foe in the Russian army. The war was fought in harsh conditions, with the Crimean Peninsula's cold winters and hot summers taking a toll on the British soldiers. Ill-prepared and under-resourced, the British troops were challenged not only by the Russians, but also by the unforgiving environment and the logistical nightmares of war. The war was a series of battles, sieges, and standoffs, with notable events including the Battle of Balaclava and the Siege of Sevastopol. The British forces suffered significant losses, both in terms of soldiers and resources. The war also exposed the inadequacies of the British military system, from its outdated tactics to its poor medical care. The Crimean War was not just a military defeat, it was a blow to the British Empire's prestige. The war revealed the vulnerabilities of the British military and the weaknesses in its administrative and logistical systems. The defeat forced the British government to reassess its military strategies and instigate reforms, some of which would shape the future of warfare. Despite the eventual victory of the Allied forces, the heavy losses and hardships experienced by the British troops cannot be understated. The Crimean War was a costly affair, both in terms of lives lost and financial expense. This war marked a significant shift in the balance of power in Europe and signaled the beginning of the end for the British Empire. These significant defeats highlight the challenges faced by the British Empire during the Victorian era. From the scorching plains of Isandlwana to the rugged hills of Maiwand, the British military, often seen as invincible, faced setbacks that shook the empire to its core. The Anglo-Zulu War, marked notably by the Battle of Isandlwana in 1879, was a stark reminder of the power of indigenous resistance. Over 1,300 British soldiers fell on that battlefield, a loss felt deeply back home and across the empire. In the same year was the Battle of Rorke's Drift, where the British, while not defeated, were nearly overwhelmed by the Zulu forces. This battle underscored the challenges the British faced during the Anglo-Zulu War. The First and Second Anglo-Afghan Wars and the First Boer War brought to light the difficulties of colonial warfare and the tenacity of the Afghan and Boer forces. The loss of military equipment in Maiwand and the concessions to Boer demands after the Battle of Majuba Hill were significant blows to the empire. The First and Second Anglo-Sikh Wars saw the British face initial defeats against the Sikh Empire. The eventual annexation of the Punjab region, despite the victories, highlighted the fierce resistance encountered by British forces. And lastly, the Crimean War, while not solely a British defeat, involved the British in a costly and challenging conflict against Russia. The significant losses and hardships experienced by British troops during this war were felt deeply throughout the empire. These 10 military engagements, each significant in its own way, shaped the course of the British Empire and the Victorian era. They remind us of the complexities of colonial warfare, the strength of indigenous resistance, and the inevitability of setbacks, even for the most powerful empires. As we can see, even the mightiest empires have their moments of vulnerability. That's it for our countdown. Until next time, keep exploring history.